Right now I'm going to invite on stage Mr. Mike Parsons, who is the Chief Information Officer of Qualitance, and he's going to share his experience about making corporate innovation really work. Mike?
Hi guys, how you doing? Ooh, geez, it's like a post. What did you all have, like beef stroganoff or something? Thank you very much for having me. Where would you like me to stand? I know there's a camera. Do you want me about here? Okay. Thank you very much for having the time to spend and listen to me. So I'm hoping that I can share some things with you that will help you go on what some people might call mission impossible, okay? So I'm hoping, and I want you to keep me accountable to this promise. I want to give everybody just one thing, one little idea to help them build great product. You interested? All right. Now, this story starts some 20 years ago. In my misspent youth, I was a professional DJ in Sydney, and then a friend of mine rang me up and he said, "Hey, Mike, let's start an internet radio station in 1997. So there we are, streaming. Does anyone remember Real Player? Used to stream audio. Show of hands. Does anyone remember that? Yeah, a few oldies. Hey, the grey hairs, that's us. So we launched this station, and everyone was amazed that in those days you could put music on the internet, video on the internet, and we thought we were the next big thing. We thought we were pretty cool. We thought our product was cool. But pretty soon we realized there's something you need when you launch a product, which is called a business model. And we did not have one of those. So by the end of the year, we had closed the station and I didn't have any money left. And it was a very sad story. And so I thought to myself for this talk, what were the things that I wish I had known some 20 years ago? And what were the things that would have helped me overcome that big guess that I had made when I thought just having a cool product would be enough? And it wasn't. So I'm going to share with you some of these ideas. The first one is that if you're truly trying to do something innovative, if you're trying to create a brand new product, and you're trying to really create something that is breakthrough, that's never been seen before, the truth really is that it's almost impossible. In fact, the numbers tell the story. Can you believe that 75% of startups that go and get money in the US, so just to help you understand, these are the startups that go to professional venture capitalists and they raise money for their startup. Can you believe that 75% of them fail? And it gets even worse if you go to the other side of town, to the big companies. They launch over 30,000 new products every year. And you know, in the study by Clay Christensen, he found that 95% of those fail after a year. That means that they just have zero to little interest. So I know right now you're thinking to yourself, hey, Mike, we were looking for a little bit of inspiration and you're feeling like I'm getting dark and gloomy. But I promise you that this is actually the heart of where you can get really excited about innovation because it is so hard. So if you have a roadmap, if you have a guy giving you a few tips on how to do it, you might have the chance of doing it. Okay? Next one. Now, this is something else that I really wish that I had known, which is that innovation is everywhere. Now, commonly we often think to ourselves that innovation is sort of a consumer electronic product, you know, from Apple, or maybe it's that Airbnb app that you have on your phone. But do you realize that that's only one of 4 Ps? The 4 Ps of innovation, these are all the places you can go to innovate. You can go over and have a look here at people. Do you know it's actually a great place to start if you want to innovate? It doesn't have to be product. You can go and look at profit. You can create a new business model. Or perhaps You want to tell a story worth sharing. These are all areas that you can innovate in. And I know you're thinking to me, Mike, I'm not 100% sure about this idea. Well, let me give you a few examples. I want you to think about it like this. Let's say product, we all know what product innovation looks like. What does people innovation look like? Well, let me tell you this story. The All Blacks are the national rugby team of New Zealand. Does anybody here know what their win rate is for the last 10 years? 85%. Now, do you realize, just to give you a comparison, that the most successful football coach in America in history, his win rate is just a little bit over 70%. Now, what's interesting about the All Blacks is they wear the same jerseys. They have to wear the same boots. So the product part is all the same. They're playing on the same field with the same ball. But you know what? They've won the last 3 World Cups. And they only have 4 million people living in the country. So they have roughly 300,000 or 400,000 people playing rugby. They go and play against countries like England that have 2 million players, and England can't beat them. And the source of that innovation is culture. They produce the most amazing leaders on the rugby field. And you know what? If you want to innovate with your business model, what I call the profit P, you might think about Google being this great company with all this cool search stuff. But do you know what the biggest innovation that they have brought to the world is? That they have gone into the advertising industry and completely disintermediated the ad agency and the media agency. And I know that because I used to work in one. Now, it's not only tech titans that are doing this. If you have a look at Rolls-Royce, they make these big jet engines. Do you know what they did? They started charging per kilometre. If you have a look at Xerox, they were thinking, how can we innovate around our business model? And you know what they did? They started charging per copy. So they would lease you your machine based on how many copies you made. That's great business model innovation. And I don't need to tell you about promotion. Look at Nike and Dove in these highly competitive consumer spaces. They tell stories that people want to share. Did anyone see what they did recently with the famous NFL player Colin Kaepernick? Did anyone see what they did? Very controversial. I lived in San Francisco for 6 years, so I had the joy of seeing Colin play. In fact, my son actually threw a football with him. But you know what? Very controversial. Do you know what happened for Nike's sales in that quarter? Up 30%. And if you look at brands like Dove, who also tell great stories, the 2 things that they do exceptionally well, apart from telling great stories, is that they are ubiquitous in their market. So there you have it. That's the 4 Ps of innovation. So now, that was the good news, right? So it's not all, it's impossible, you might not make it, it's not the Everest that you thought it was. So here's the next thing, okay? So I painted for you these 4 Ps, okay? You can go and innovate in any one of those. There's an interesting thing to note is that often companies that are really good at one of the Ps, let's see if this smart gentleman can guess. If I was really good at product, what are you going to guess they're like on the people side of things?
Well, not that good.
Really? I got news for you. Because the interesting thing is, you can't build a great product if you don't have a great culture. So what's really interesting is you start to see that these things are all interrelated. And often companies that have great culture, the companies that have great products tend to have really smart business models too, right? Airbnb is a great case in that. Okay, so there's this spectrum, okay? I'm going to show you these 3 great areas that you can innovate in. And often, one of these is never even considered as an area to innovate. So I want you to pay special attention. Now, number 1, this is the easy one, the customer experience. This is a great place to start on this spectrum of innovation, okay? You go out there, classic thing is you do a big marketing campaign, or maybe you create, hands up, who's heard of a brand say, we've just created store of the future? Do you not hear this all the time? Everyone's like, we've got the latest technology. We've got a kiosk, store of the future, okay? Or you might have an amazing customer service experience, like Apple does. They have the Genius Bar. Okay? This is customer experience. Great place to innovate, but it's not enough because, yes, it's pretty cost effective and you can do it pretty quick. But what do you think? I already asked you a question, so I better ask someone else. This lady looks like she wants to answer the question. What do you think the downside might be of just innovating in customer experience? It's pretty affordable. You can do it pretty quick, but no, think. Have you ever seen an Apple store right next to a Microsoft store and noticed something about the two? You can copy it. That's the problem. If you create an amazing customer experience, the trouble is the other guys might look at that and say, all right, quick, let's go down to Bucharest and build Store of the Future too. Okay? Has anyone actually seen a Microsoft store abroad? Isn't it eerily like you walk past it and you're like, they've got 2 Apple stores. Oh, no, hang on, that's the Microsoft store. Okay, this is what happens with customer experience. So you need to do more than that, okay? Now we go into product. Now it gets a bit more serious. It could be digital or analog and takes a little bit longer and it certainly costs a lot more. But the nice thing is it can be a pretty good, sustainable, competitive advantage. Yes, it can be copied, but it's pretty good. But here is the dark horse. Over here, the system-wide, network-wide innovation is the thing almost no companies take the time and effort to do. But here's the twist. It's where the greatest reward lives. When you create system-wide or network-wide innovation, when you exploit scale, you start to see a really crazy bunch of things happen. Has anyone here heard of the network effect? This is where it starts to exist. So the telephone is a network. Myself and this gentleman, we're the first 2 to have a phone. I mean, he looks like a smart guy. I'm a little suspect, but there's only 2 of us on the network. But then this lady joins in the network. And the network actually gets better as a result, okay? This is a network effect. So in the end, when everyone's on the phone, when everyone has a number, that network has experienced network effects. But you can get plenty of other ones. You can get 2-sided marketplaces like, hands up, who uses Tinder? Etsy, right? That's a 2-sided marketplace, buyers and sellers, Airbnb. And do you know the crazy thing? The more people that get on Airbnb, the more people that want to stay. There's a little car company that has the same network effect. Does anyone know which company that is? Uber. Because the more drivers there are, the quicker you get picked up. The quicker you get picked up, the more you want to drive. You want to get a lift with them. So these are the network effects, and these have this exponential characteristic. Now, what's the twist here is how many big brands that have so many assets to leverage, how many big companies really leverage system-wide innovation? Only a few. Great one is Vanguard in the US, second biggest investment fund in the world, second to BlackRock. They decided to stay private so that everybody who invests in their funds becomes a shareholder of the company. And instead of charging exorbitant fees to their customers, they reduce the prices the more customers that come on. And that's why they're the second biggest fund in the world. Now, something else really cool starts to happen here. When you do one of these, you get a tick from Mike Parsons. But when you do all 3, what I propose to you is you become a tech titan. You become unbeatable when you do all 3. Okay, who is brave enough? I'm going to give you unlimited funds, and I tell you now, I challenge you, beat Apple. Number 1, customer experience. They have the most successful stores on the planet. Do you know nobody sells more goods per square foot than Apple? It's not bad, huh? They've got this little thing called the Genius Bar, so we like to hang out. Number 2, the hardware is pretty beautiful. And do you know the other thing? They have one of the world's most effective supply chains. Kind of unbeatable. And we can do the same exercise here for Amazon. You can see Amazon, they own one-click shopping. I mean, they have the trademark, they have the patent for one-click shopping. Oh, they have Prime. They have the biggest e-commerce store in the world. They have 47% of the American e-commerce market. And they've got 47 jumbo jets to augment delivery so that you experience less delays because they can't rely on the traditional post services. Oh, did I mention they're the biggest hosting company in the world? This is what happens when you do innovation across the spectrum. Okay, so now we're going to start getting into some design stuff. Any designers in the audience? I got you. This one's for you. So, oh, there's another one hiding in the dark, but most designers do tend to hide in the dark, so this gentleman is very rare. He's actually sitting in the light. I can see you over there. Now, let's talk about product design. Who here has heard of design thinking? All right. You know, we talk about design thinking a lot, and there's a lot of nuance in it. To me, I love it because at the heart of it, it means having empathy for your customer. And that's a great place to start. Because if you do that, you can create a product that is full of desire, that your customers really want. But there's two other things. These are the sort of unsung heroes of design thinking. Now, if you have a look over here, there's feasibility. Feasibility is really about, can you afford to make this product and sell it at an adequate price? Right? And viability is all about, can you actually build it? Because we've all seen those products that people hold up in the lab and it looks great. And then you launch it and then you're like, nobody seems to be able to log in. Okay? That's not very viable. Now, this is really helpful for you. A couple of key tools here. First of all, if you're going to work on making your product desirable, I want you to use the value proposition canvas. Has anyone here used a value proposition canvas? Good man. This is all about getting into the heart of the pains of your customer when they're trying to get a job done. And you want to find out what gains they're looking for. And the best designers will test and learn how to relieve the pain and create the gain. So value prop canvas, you Google that, it's good. Now there's two other things. Obviously feasibility is all about cost versus revenues. Traditionally for you guys, you're going to see a lot of this come back in pricing power. Can you price the product right? And viability, build a minimum viable product. This means, and this is really essential, don't build all the bells and whistles, build just enough of the product to do the essential job for your customer, okay? Now, there's a couple of lessons we can learn in history. If you have a look over here, you'll see that I mentioned the Segway. The Segway was actually quite a revolutionary invention. You know those gyroscopes, right? But you know what they did? They went and hid in a bunker for hours, for days, for weeks, and they wouldn't let the press in. And do you know who else they wouldn't let in? The user. This guy is good. They wouldn't let users in. So, let me demonstrate for you. Launch day. Just as a reminder, you know the two biggest investors in Segway? Very good. Jeez, you guys good. Hang on. Do you want to take this? Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos. Okay? People, they got up, and here's the Segway, and they stood like this. And then they looked around and went, got off it. What did they say? I look stupid. I feel stupid on this thing. Not to mention the fact that they say, well, what happens when I get halfway to the grocery store and it's run out of gas? And they're like, yeah, we didn't think of charge stations. Oh, that could have been handy. You know the other thing it doesn't do? Breaking news, the world is not flat. It doesn't go up the stairs. Okay? Now, in hindsight, it makes so much sense. But this is what happens when you go and hide in a bunker and don't test with users. Now, just a quick story. Who here is old enough, once again, this is an age test, who here remembers using Microsoft Encarta? Show of hands. Anyone use it? It was actually a good product, right? It wasn't too bad. It was better than those brown encyclopedias we all used to have. But here's the thing. They could barely charge $99 for the product. But they had thousands of people making all this content in Redmond. So they needed to charge about $1,000 for this product. So that's a broken product. Yeah, we actually really liked it, but the pricing model was completely broken. Now, another great one was the Apple Newton. So this is from some of the kings of design. This is from Cupertino itself. They had the Apple Newton, which is the precursor to the modern day iPhone, really, if you look at it, it's amazing. But it was about 20 years too early. So here's what they proposed in their product. This product will be like writing on pen and paper. This will be your digital address book, notepad. Let me show you what it's like when they took it out of the lab and you used your first Apple Newton. Got your cursor. I'm going to write Apple. And then you just wait for the handwriting recognition. Have we got some elevator music we can play? I'm joking. Well, you get the thing, right? In the end of the day, pen and paper was way better than the Apple Newton. So in my books, that's not a really viable product, okay? So now you're like, Mike, you've hit me with maybe one ominous truth that, innovation is almost impossible, right? Almost. You've hit me with all these good ones. I'm ready to start. I'm ready. Show me the action. How do we get going? Well, here's the thing. I challenge you, and I know some of you are just dying to write some code, build an app. I'm like, hold on a second. Go check in with this strange, rarely seen entity called the customer. Might want to do that. And do you know what? There are these simple things you can do, and they have so much treasure in them. The first one, this is more quantitative. I want you to go out and I want you to survey your prospective customer and find out what jobs they're trying to get done. If you're in a particular area, find out some of the issues, maybe some of even the emotions around this. And when you actually do the right sort of survey, you can quickly begin to understand the customer. And this does something very important for step 2. This gives you patterns and insights. That's interesting. We've noted this self-identified segment in our survey, they have the problem 3 times more than the other ones. Interesting insight. And you can take those insights and those patterns and you can go and do deep one-on-one interviews with your customer. This is where you get into those pains and gains, and you may, if you're good, and if you do a lot of listening, you might sense opportunity for little features, for products that might solve real problems for these customers. And here's the good news. If you do these 2 steps, this next step is going to blow your socks off. Okay. But before that, we have to talk about crappy products. Hands up, anyone who's gone on to an app store, downloaded a product and gone, oh my God, this is so bad, like the onboarding. Has anyone ever had that experience? I'm still amazed. A lot of you didn't, so I want to know what apps you're using, which ones, because I get a lot of crappy ones. There's so many crap products out there. And I'll tell you why. Who here has seen one of those situations where everyone's around the boardroom table? It's like, I've got this great idea. It's in PowerPoint, and it looks really good in PowerPoint. I spent so much, I downloaded extra Google fonts into my deck, so it looks great. And I got clip art, and I even got the best thing ever. I've got icons. Okay, I've got icons in the deck. This product's going to be great. And people just charge off and they go and build it. In fact, Eric Ries, the creator of Lean Startup, spent $40 million building a piece of software for 5 years that nobody really wanted. And that's what inspired him to write the Lean Startup. Well, there's something you can do literally straight after this session to avoid building crappy products and certainly avoid $40 million mistakes. Rapid prototyping. This is so important. If I don't want to overstate that, and you're probably thinking, oh, Mike's really hyping up now, he's really getting into it. But honestly, when I learnt rapid prototyping, it has been one of the most powerful things that I have discovered in my entire career. And I'll tell you why. I used to work on these really big ad campaigns. Sometimes they would be in like 20, 30 markets, and the budgets were ridiculous. And we'd sit there in San Francisco, and we'd be like, we're about to do this massive launch. It's like, there's a lot on the line. And we'd be about to press this button, send it all live, right? And we'd look at each other. And what do you think this look, when we'd look at each other and we're about to put it live, what do you think the look was? Yes. Why do you think we were scared? Because we're like, we weren't really sure if it was going to work. You know, despite all that work, time, and effort, I'm telling you, like hundreds of people, lots of dollars, and yet we were still full of doubt. And here's why. Because we were still guessing and hoping that the customer might like it. Well, this, ladies and gentlemen, rapid prototyping is the way to get rid of all the fear and doubt about your next product. Because you can do a couple of things. You can do diagnostic prototyping. That's just your ability to get closer to the customer and understand them. So you might do some card sorting. You may even just do some role playing. You don't need any props. Or perhaps, if you want to get a bit more serious, you could illustrate the customer journey and then present it back to the customer for their feedback. What a great way of prototyping a product, not a line of code. And you're thinking that's a bit crazy. Like, there's like 200 engineers at our company, but I'm literally telling you, you don't need a line of code for this. Now, if you do the first two, you're going to get so much feedback from your customer. Then, like, let's turn it up. Let's get into Invention and Sketch and Adobe XD and all that good stuff. Go for it. Create experiences. But if you do these three things, the key thing is do not sit in the boardroom by yourselves. What was that rare, almost extinct being that I mentioned before? It's out there in the world somewhere, usually buys things from your company. What are they called again? The users, the customers. That's right. Sorry, I do forget sometimes. Test with your users, prototype with your users, and some really cool stuff starts to happen. You get this amazing rate of progress because you create a prototype, you get feedback. What do you think you do? Because the lady in green's been doing very well today. You've built your prototype, you tested it with the customer, and then what would you do? Would you A, have a cup of tea, or B, test again? Right. And again, because this is what happens. All those beautifully illustrated dots that I did, that's one instance of a test, okay? And what you do is you ask yourself this simple question: what did we learn and what are we going to do next? This is like compound interest in product design, because you do it once, you get to understand your customer, you fix that broken link, then you make the button better, then you make the nav better, then you actually reorganize the content in order of the path in which the user actually works, heaven forbid. That's what starts to happen. Because the one thing I know for sure is that you will never crack the product the first time. So in fact, the whole world of innovation and design is really coming down to one single factor: learning. How good are you at learning? And your rate of learning is the new measure for product design. In fact, what I would propose to you as official knowledge workers in the age of information, your ability to learn will not only determine whether you build great products, but I think it will determine if you have a thriving career. Okay, I've done at least 4 or 5 really positive points, right? How am I on the positivity? Okay, so let's get really negative again, okay? So most product development processes end up in some sort of catastrophe. The classic ones, founders split up, right? That's a good one. Gets really nasty. There's some heated boardroom conversations. What else? You run out of money. You blame that the customer doesn't get it. That's a really common one. Any other things that tend to happen on these terrible journeys of building a product? You work late nights, you quit, you're fed up. What about our designer? Do you have any bad experiences, any product design catastrophes you want to share? Later. We do it at the bar. We do it at the bar. But the truth is that building a product from scratch to hero, it's like, takes forever. And it's very easy to get off track. So here's what it looks like if you do it right. Now, this might not have been my graphic design, art direction glory right here. I've actually struggled with this table. So if there's any good table designers, I would like some help here. But this one is full of so much content and wisdom that I really want to stress that you pay attention here. The path to developing an awesome product has 3 stages of fit. And I will tell you this, most products suck or are crappy, and one of the biggest contributing reasons is they do not follow this process. Hands up here, who's seen someone with a great product idea and then they skip about 20 steps and just go and try and build the final product? Who here has seen that happen? It happens all the time. But what I'm proposing to you is there's 3 elegant steps. 1, go out and find a problem-solution fit. So there is not a line of code happening at this point. You are trying to determine, is there a big enough problem in the world, and is there a legitimate, validated way of solving it, hypothetically? If we were to do this, would that solve it? This is problem-solution fit. Now, if you get this right, I grant you all the permission in the world to go and look for a product market fit. This is a totally different thing because the first step is all about user experience. But the second step, the product market fit, that's much more of like a product manager kind of vibe, right? These people are asking themselves a very tough question. Can we build a minimum viable product? Can we actually do this? Put it out in the world for early adopters? Will they, and this one will make you a little uncomfortable, will the customer pay, right? Will they actually pay for this thing? It's amazing how many startups give stuff away and then can never convince their customers to pay for it. Because if your customer's not prepared to pay for it, chances are you haven't solved the problem well enough, right? So that's why you can go to product market fit. And this is really about building that MVP. If you have got those early adopters paying on that MVP, and I'm talking that MVP is in the wild, being used by that, help me again, that rare person that we bump into every now and then, the user, we're there, we got something. Well, now this is the fun part. This is Madman, this is Madison Avenue. This is where you get a growth mentality, which is very different because prior to this, you were like a Sherlock Holmes looking for validation of the product, and before that, you were just an open, curious mind. But if you've made it to this third step, you are a growth engine. You are looking for traction, you're looking for profitability. You want to get as many people using this product as possible. But the real challenge here, when you want to get distribution conversion fit, is can you actually attract the customer in a profitable manner? Anyone here working at a startup? One of the biggest challenges you'll all find, I don't know anything about your companies, but I can tell you this. Can you acquire your customer in a healthy, well-priced manner? Or like most startups, when they're in this stage, they're like, oh, yeah, the keywords that we have to buy are about 10 times more expensive than what we thought, and that kind of blows the whole business model. B2B is just the same. The classic thing in B2B is not so much the price, it's the time. It takes forever to close. So, oh yeah, we thought we'd be growing like this. We're talking to a lot of people and they're using SAP and IBM and they're not sure if they want to, maybe if we do a trial and spend all this time and money, run out of cash, boom. This is, again, not the sexiest slide, but there's a lot of gold in that. Okay, so I think we just avoided catastrophe. Let me check in with these 2 tough customers. Did we avoid catastrophe? Bit of a path through there? Oh, okay. Making me nervous. Okay. All right, I'm going to try this one on you. When you design for a customer, B2B or B2C, trust me, you are going to encounter this customer thing. These people that we find in the wild, this gentleman knows where they are. He sees them occasionally. We experience one of the weirdest human traits, whether it's in boardrooms or whether it's in nightclubs or in the high street supermarket. There is something very weird going on. And it's called the endowment effect. And this thing is going to kill you. Because I'm looking around this room and I see some very talented, sharp-looking product innovation people. He even asked tough questions in the middle of my talk. I mean, this guy's going places. But here's the thing. Now, has anyone got, oh, we've got a coffee mug. Can I steal this for a second? Okay. Can I get you two gentlemen up here? Okay. Have you got a spare set of clothes? Can you bring the water? No, I'm joking. Just hold that. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to demonstrate the endowment effect. Okay. So this young man, he is going to sell this coffee mug. And the reason I'm using a coffee mug as an example, there's a big study done by Princeton to find out what exactly is going on with this endowment effect. Now, the seller who owns the cup is very different to the buyer who does not own the cup. All right, you with me? He owns it, he doesn't. He's selling, he's buying. They did this massive study, and check out these numbers over here. When they asked the buyer, this is this gentleman, I want you to shout out, $2.87. Okay, shout it out.
$2.87.
Was that loud enough?
$2.87.
Right. This was how he answered the question of how much is this mug worth? Now, the other guy, $7.12. Okay, now this study is incredible because they have both just valued the same mug. Oh, I'm sorry, hang on. Can I pay you? Do you take Apple Pay? All right, guys, give it up for these two gentlemen. Come on. So what happens is we have these weird behavioral things, loss aversion. We have a bias to the status quo. Let me just put it even simpler. We hate change. So when I come to you and I say, I have a coffee mug that is going to blow you away, I say it's worth $7 and how much? Yeah. And you're saying, no, Mike, I think it's worth $2. Right. And so what happens is creators, as inventors, we are so endowed with our invention, we covet the precious that we've built. It's going to be fantastic, only to find that we have priced it 3 times over what the customer does. And this leads to no end of frustrations and problems because back to my startup friends, we've all been building these great products, right? And we're in love with them. But maybe the customer's not so in love with them. So scientifically, human beings are geared to loss aversion. So when we go, hey, buy our new thing, the first thing they do is they're like, oh my God, the switching costs, right? What phone do you use? Okay, I got a great Android phone here. It's like 5% faster, and because it's Samsung, it's like 7.5% cheaper. Want to switch?
No, I will stick with my brand.
Yeah, exactly. Because immediately he's going, but then I can't do iMessage, right? Then I lose my iTunes. This happens with every product. Everyone is instantly trading. It's like, oh, geez, that sounds like, ooh. But because we go back here. We go all the way back here. Do you know what the crazy thing you can do? You can do pricing discovery. You can actually price and prototype different prices. The amazing thing is how you present your price is everything. So there's all sorts of things that you can do. You can prototype how you price your product. Subscription, pay annually, pay as you go, all sorts of different models. Okay, we've avoided the catastrophe. We have the endowment effect, okay? You are all up against it when you want to innovate. But because I've promised this gentleman I won't be too dark, okay? This is not going to be like visiting Mordor, okay? There will be some bright little hobbits running around. Here's all you need to do. And I'm going to apologize in advance because my design friends are feeling design love over here. They're going to say, yeah, but Mike, this is, it's easy to say, hard to do, and you're right. If you're going to introduce a new product to the world, here's what I want you to do. I want you to make sure it requires as little behavior change as possible because we're all up against which effect? The endowment effect, right? So, of course, the natural ones should be cheaper, easier, take less time. Those are the 3 easy ones. But for you, these are like the dark arts of product design. You have to do a couple of things here. First of all, do not create too much cognitive load in your product. Classic thing, you get home from the Media Markt. You've got your big flat screen television. You try and set it up. You're getting it out. You get the cords. You get the manual. Throw the manual over there. And then halfway into putting the television on, you're like, I'm not sure what to do next. It doesn't make any sense. You go get the manual. You pick it up. And then you read the manual. And who's had those experiences where you actually do read the manual and then it doesn't make any sense, right? And you're like, who wrote this thing? Okay, that's cognitive load. None of that, thank you. Now, the other two, these are really cool. Do you remember I was doing this before? I'm just practicing to do the Macarena because we have to all do the Macarena. No, I'm joking. No, this is social deviance. Segway broke the rule. They broke a social norm of how you look when you're on a push bike. And everyone's like, baby, I'm not getting on that thing. Even though it's like a cool invention. Now, my routine, if there's anything that's precious with a customer, don't mess with their routine. If I told you 6 blocks away from your office, there is the best barista in Bucharest. It's better than Origo. Who's had coffee from Origo? It's pretty good, right? It's better than that. But it's 6 blocks away. So you've got to go across 2 roads, under a tunnel, over a bridge, and watch out for the crazy guy who always parks on the side of the road. I know you probably think that's everywhere in Bucharest, but trust me, it's happening, okay? So you get there and you taste this coffee and it's amazing. But you're like, damn, that was like 35 minutes out of my day. The next day, you're passing the Starbucks in the foyer, in your office, and you're like, it's barely a 7. And that guy yesterday, that coffee was like 9.5. But this is my habit, this is my routine. I just walk past, it's just in the office. It's easy, I know the guy. Yeah, it's a 7 out of 10. Don't mess with people's habits and routines. Make sure you give them a ton of these things, lots of user benefits. So if you're compressing all these things I've just mentioned, give them a ton of these things. Mobility, wellness, and if you're going up Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, give them a ton of social impact, or at the top, self-actualization. All right, real quick, because I think I've got to wrap up. I'm getting all sorts of flashing. It's quite dramatic. If you want to avoid a product that nobody wants, because you've done everything else, you've got it to market, and you want to make sure you don't have that nerves, create a product using 10x thinking. Meaning, go after a big problem, not a small one. Employ a radical and original solution. And please use just a sprinkle, a dash of emerging technology, and you'll have all sorts of goodness. Oh, this is my second last slide. This is so good. Now, breaking news, I've got to go back to my dark side. You're all thinking, we've got to build this great big product. We've got to climb Everest. Well, the bad news is this. You will never, ever recruit a dream team. It'll never happen. It will be impossible. Why? Well, all the best people are not looking to move, and it's impossible to get all the right people with complementary, synergistic skills at the right time in the right place into a company, right? These guys are the toughest, right? Yeah? So you only have one option. So now I'm back to the good news, okay? Back to the good news. You can build a dream team. You can't buy one, you can't recruit one, and there's 3 essential behaviors all of you need to have if you want to build a remarkable product. The first thing is you need to communicate like crazy. It is almost impossible, so you cannot over-communicate too much. And if you communicate as much as you can, you'll create things like transparency, trust, and when you're communicating, you can have healthy conflict to talk about the real issues. Do that, and people will commit. They'll sign up. They'll hold each other accountable, and they will get objectives and results. Now, if you can get those 2 done, you're already in a very fine club. The last one, if you can truly be collaborative in your DNA, don't be a closed book, be an open book. Go out there and bring people together, make 1 + 1 = 3, do everything together, and you'll find that your team will take risks and they will dare, and this is a very hard thing, they will dare to dream big. So I want to thank you all for your time today, and I hope all of you got one thing to go out there and build the product of your dreams. Thank you very much.